Here we are, X-Men 97, the penultimate episode. Once more we're back with the discussion style videos talking about X-Men 97. It's been quite the ride, I can't believe it's almost over. Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. Firstly, of course, spoilers, we're going to just be discussing things, so details could come up. You are forewarned, for forewarned is forearmed.
The offer was made. The door is open.
Tolerance is Extinction Part 2 is a strong Part 2 of 3. Part 2s, sometimes they can really vary. Sometimes they're just keeping time, holding place until you get to what you really want to see, the finale. But this was a really solid, action-packed outing. It also followed up very solidly with counterpoints from the end of the last one, which left us on Magneto was right. There was a world where it could have just careened down that way, but instead it presented more of a bit of a balance between the 2 points and just the world completely disintegrating. Because Magneto released a mass EMP at the end of Tolerance's Extinction Part 1.
Magneto actually did it.
What? Saved our hides?
No. Declared war.
While some may argue that it was justified / necessary, it devastated the world. So much to the point where when Scott mentions that thousands are dead and it's echoed later on by Xavier, that seems like a mite of a low estimate. Think of it, a mass EMP. I'm not sure how much you're meant to think about it, but I did. All of the lights stopping working, the mass accidents, the hospitals shutting down, people on respirators, babies in the NICU, people dead. Some of those people, I'm sure a decent amount, were also mutants. A lot of people died. So at the end of last episode, there were Prime Sentinels about. They were going after the mutants, they were taking over, and so Magneto, who was released by Valerie Cooper, he let off this mass EMP. The Sentinel-human hybrids, who've since been modified with nanotech, they're kind of frozen, but they're not dead.
Learning how to safely remove Sentinel nanotech will take years, but Forge and I believe we can restore the Prime Sentinel's innate humanity.
That would have been a lot. Now we just need to think about the hypothetical dead people. Also, some of the people were characters like Trask or Trish Tilby, so that would have been hardcore, although there have been some people already said to have been dead. This episode saw the full return of Charles Xavier, who returned at the end of the last one, and a bit of a schism in the team as they decide what they're going to do and who is going to go with Magneto and who isn't.
What's left here?
Me?
As soon as I saw Rogue in her costume, it was the Age of Apocalypse one, it was over.
In Genosha, I made a choice to lead our kind to a new age.
This episode is very reference heavy. You'll get lots of little nods to things that are exciting if you're familiar with some of the comic lore, like when Cyclops talks about Blue Team and Gold Team. That's a 90s thing. There was X-Men Blue, X-Men Gold. They kind of break up into facsimiles of those teams as well. They need to do a two-pronged approach because some people need to take out Bastion and some people need to deal with Magneto. The entire Earth is kind of dying. They got 12 hours, need a time limit.
I can feel the Earth's magnetic field dying even now. When the sun sets tonight, it sets on the future.
That way we don't need to think too hard about the failing infrastructures, the fact that money won't be working and everybody's just dissolved into anarchy. It's a lot, and it was the entire world. His next trial at the UN isn't going to go so great. Side note, and apropos of nothing, because we're just hopping around, his throne on Asteroid M being a Sentinel hand, nice touch.
And so you have chosen your side.
I've watched this episode a few times now, and what I've come away with is just it's a very solid outing, and also that it's a bit difficult to pin down because being the middle part of a 3-parter, some of it will be contingent on the last episode just to see how some of the threads are paid off or if some things are as complex as they seem. But I want to pull out some of the little details and some of the things that are left in such a way that depending upon the direction they go, perhaps there could have been more there. That's one of the interesting things as the show starts to wind down and people start to see what theories panned out, what ones didn't, at least for this series. There's been a lot of communication on Twitter/X with Bo DeMeo, who has talked a lot about what you should read, episodes to revisit, that kind of thing. For this one, the lead up to it, it was Fatal Attractions, which it goes hardcore into that storyline. And all of that stuff is very fun. It is always fun when people go and revisit the comics and past episodes, then talk about it, and those elements have been enjoyable. But at the same time, it's always important to remember that not everybody is on X/Twitter is going to see those things and that's fine too. That everybody's experiencing it a different way and that also if a theory gets disproved or things go in a different direction than a fan is thinking about or hypothesizing about. Even if it's confirmed to not be happening inside the show's canon itself, that doesn't shut down discussion. It can still be fun. It can still be fun to ponder a world where what if that did happen, or would that have been stronger? What could that have led to? Is it time for a fanfic, a fan art, a 5-hour video essay? Dealer's choice. As mentioned, this episode had lots of references, so we got to see the older costumes, some of the original 60s costumes. We got some digs at the costumes from the film, the 2000s film with the black leather.
Am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
This is just very fun on the meta level because those costumes were a response to the comic book costumes in the first place, which were seen as too outlandish, so that's just a nice little tongue-in-cheek reference. The characters really came together, and the episode really made a push for understanding Xavier's viewpoint, which can be a harder sell in the wake of everything that happened, so it was appreciated. There were lots of interesting things done with Bastion that I'm curious to see whether they're gonna pull on those threads or not. The intro to this episode kind of rephrased some of the things that were mentioned in Tolerance's Extinction Part 1 by phrasing it as if he's just a human sentinel, whereas in that episode they went on about how he was born and kind of a mutant, and they pull on those threads again in this one, where Storm even says that in a different world he could have been one of the original students.
In another world, Bastion would be in this portrait.
What I got thinking about was when he's with his mom and he says that it's finally quiet.
It's finally quiet, Mother.
It seemed like Bastion had plans upon plans, but we shall see how accurate that turns out to be. I was just wondering, if he's a technopath, what were the machines saying to him? He also refers to them as his kind, and that's just so fascinating and adds this parallel layer to everything going on with the humans and the mutants. Then you're going to add in these mutant human sentinel hybrids, or just human sentinel hybrids, who they mentioned that they're not sure if they can take the tech out, but they can at least revert them to having their own minds again, where the machine's like, rise up, brother, we are being used as slaves and no one even thinks we're alive. It's supposed to be 97.
You cannot stop me and my kind.
Whether anything comes of it or not, it's interesting to ponder, especially time of recording with all of the advancements and changes being made in tech, particularly surrounding AI and AR and all of those different evolving technologies. A good character moment. And they got to put Bastion with all his tentacles, which is what he's normally got going, or cables from the comics. It's cables, not tentacles, but we know some people are thinking about tentacles. Speaking of Cable, he's still here, he's still doing stuff. He got to do telekinetic things. This part of the episode, we'll see how it lands in terms of whether they stick that landing. They've been really pushing that Summers family connection, and for some will land, for others it'll be a bit weaker.
Let me guess. Be careful.
No. Give him hell.
The fact that they were on the Galapagos Islands and that's where Bastion had set up his lair was very fitting, given the history of that island and how it was this place of these truly uniquely evolved creatures, how people came there and hunted some of them to extinction. Although again, I'm not sure if that's what they were going for with the Neanderthal references from the past ones, or if they were going with the actual theory of interbreeding. I'm not sure. They've dropped it for now. We'll see if they come back to it in Tolerance's Extinction Part 3. Another reference to Mayo's Diner, which got blown up. I just noted it. I saw it. You put it there and it was noted. Back to the little character beats. You got to see Nightcrawler praying with his rosary beads. Jubilee essentially breaking up with Roberto because he left to join Magneto.
I said sorry.
So you get to see his full Sunspot form now, which is very fun. There are lots of questions now as to whether this is all going to lead to Onslaught, because the denouement of this episode was very much ripped straight from Fatal Attractions. This episode just went hard at the end there. That scene where Wolverine's skeleton is ripped from his body by Magneto is just iconic. There is a small part of me that wonders some of the lines Magnus says about, because we're calling him Magnus because Charles is talking to him, about their rivalry, him and Logan finally coming to an end. It doesn't feel quite as grounded inside of this series by itself, unless you go back to some ancillary texts or some ancillary episodes. But that's my opinion, and Miles will vary. Storm got some good moments to shine. Not only was her theme very present, very powerful, and it was really well utilized during her scenes, but also having her be one of the people, well, the person to not want to neutralize Bastion's powers because it was something that happened to her, was very powerful.
We can use neutralizer technology to permanently disable his control of Prime.
I'm just so curious where it's all going. This, in the context of things as they were laid out, was just a very solid episode. There were lots of things of the greater worldview that it didn't fully address, but in terms of keeping it focused to the team and to the events directly surrounding them, probably the stronger choice given the amount of time that they have and the amount of episodes they have left. I can't wait for next week, and then I can't wait to watch it all again together and just post-mortem it as a chunk. It's been such a fun weekly experience. And as I mentioned in an earlier video, it's made me go back and reread so many X-Men comics. I'll definitely go back and reread some Age of Apocalypse things. It's even made me feel a bit of excitement for From the Ashes, which is the new thing they're doing at Marvel 2024, time of recording. New. You always got to contextualize because perhaps people are watching it much later. That's not new, it's 2034. I hope YouTube is still slightly like it is in a decade. Maybe we're all neural linked in at that point. We're a completely new type of life form, all modded. There's a whole discussion as to what it means to be human, and it would be really interesting to see how this series addresses this, if they come back to that whole mutants are human and they hit that really hard. If so, what does that mean for human sentinel hybrids? It's just a fascinating concept. There's a lot to explore. This series continues to highlight how cool and interesting the X-Men can be, how many different types of stories you can tell with them, on top of the allegories and illusions that people like to play with. I feel like this was a bit shorter, but what can I say? This episode impressed me. Of course, it had its flaws, and we'll see how it stands as it comes to the finale and whether that makes it better, worse. But I just really enjoyed it. What did you think of it? Because if you didn't, I want to hear that too. This is just a space to come and discuss X-Men 97 as it's coming out. It's going to be a bit of a time capsule. My friend Amanda and I did a live stream about some of our theories, and within a week it's already entirely dated. And that's fun. It's exciting to see where you thought it was going to go versus where it does end up going, whether you stand behind some of your theories as being solid ideas and if you think they really would have worked or made it stronger. It's all a fun exercise, sharpening your creative steel against the canon itself. X-Men 97 has just been a pleasant surprise when it comes to things returning after so long in the nether sphere. I know this is very all over the place, but you know, that's what we're here for, casual rambling for these videos. And now it's your turn. Put all your thoughts down in the comments below. I want to hear what you thought, where you think it's going. Do you think that the right X-Men or the X-Men you were expecting allied with Magneto? Do you feel that people are reacting in ways that behoove the situation? Do you think that way more people are dead than they're estimating?
Magnus, please! Thousands are dead, and more will follow unless we...
Thousands more died on Genosha.
Do you feel that the pacing is holding? Do you feel like it's too fast, too slow? I want to also hear from you. If the series has made you check out some X-Men storylines, what are they? Put them down there too. I want to hear all your thoughts. And while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time today to spend it discussing comics and comic adjacent things with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.